So with Luis, some nights was less. The running joke in the bivouac, we would go check on where Luis was at. We'd go up to the competitor's tent and try and find out where Luis was at. And as soon as we would walk in, the officials there would start laughing, and they're in French, in their French accent. They'd be like, "You know, it's too early for Luis," you know, and just laughing. And I think Luis was good for anywhere from between 9 o'clock in the evening to 3 o'clock in the morning is when he'd finally show up. And the 3 o'clock in the morning stint, we had to put a motor in. So, and he had to be out by 6:30 in the morning. So it was definitely it was a lot of work.
How many bikes did you have this year?
We had 3 bikes. So and I take that back. We had Dave Peckham with Rally Management Services, you know, supporting Kevin Mungleton out of our truck as well. And unfortunately, in stage 2, Kevin crashed in the dunes and broke his back. So it took him out of the race. So Dave was there and provided all the support necessary, you know, to help us out and to be as successful as we were with the 3 bikes. So we started 3 bikes and we finished 3 bikes.
Kevin's, I want to say, okay now. I mean,
Kevin's great. Yeah, he's back.
He plans to ride this year.
He is back to training, full training, and he plans on racing 2014 if he's accepted. So he's working on his bike, and we're hoping to support him again this year if possible. So
A 2-stroke was in the race?
that 2-stroke was in the race.
What is that?
That's a KTM 150.
150?
It's a 150.
Yeah, I replaced the head gasket with a real one since I read the Kansas City Star article about the bracelet.
It's the very same one.
So, and no, it's probably still in there. We haven't done anything reconditioned either of these bikes at this point in time, so I'm looking forward to pulling them apart. I've got a cylinder out there that's missing, you know, a 1/4 inch of plating, you know, on the inside of the cylinder on 2 sides, and it just, when these things overheat and they seize, you know, especially with Luis, I gotta hand it to Luis. He's the most driven, strong-willed, genius,
Crazy person.
you know. The bivouacs, you know, we would obviously pull into a new bivouac every night. We never knew what we would expect. This particular bivouac is in Pisco. It's the...
Did I hear him saying something about the temperature being over 100 degrees?
Yes. Yeah, I want to say for most of the race, the temperatures were up in the hundreds. 100 and maybe from 95 to 110, 115.
As a general rule, that bivouac would be in the upper third of niceness.
Yeah. All the
The
bivouacs.
first one we pulled into, we weren't there real late, but there were, what, 4 vehicles, 5 vehicles stuck before we pulled in. I mean,
Right.
it was just
In the sand. This bivouac we actually got stuck in too. I mean, we got backed in to a spot and we had prime real estate, and the organization comes to us and says, "You can't park there, we've got this all mapped out." People had actually paid to reserve their spots in every bivouac. So we had these big teams that are surrounding us. You know, we got the Kamaz team, we've got the Iveco teams, we've got a lot of the big truck teams surrounding us, and they're paying for this prime real estate. And so we had to move. And the moment we moved, you know, we knew we were doomed. We just kind of floored it, backed up to a certain spot, and made our bivouac, made our pit right there. The next morning, sure enough, we're getting ready to leave, and we bury it. You know, six tires deep, you know, right in the sand to the frame. So we ended up getting pulled out by believe it or not, it was a large industrial forklift that we got pulled out by. So.
Can you talk a little bit about just all the gear that needs to be on the bikes? I know carrying water and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so the rules state that you have to carry enough fuel to go 160 miles or 250 kilometers. So our main tank right there, our 6-gallon tank, actually was probably sufficient. And when I say that they got to go 160 miles, it's basically from fuel stop to fuel stop. That bike right there on the main tank was going about 200. And you know, you don't know what's going to happen out in the middle of the desert. You're going to get lost. You're going to get off course or whatever. You're going to run into situations where you might have to help out another rider with fuel. So these bikes had plenty of fuel. Luis's, I think his was the challenge. As you all know, two-strokes are very inefficient when it comes to combustion. So that whole subframe right there is a fuel tank. And then we've got a small fuel tank on the right side that's a custom-made aluminum tank. At the bottom of it is his oil reservoir. On the other side, then we've got another tank for fuel as well.
Then you have to carry 3 liters of water in the skid plate, tools. Then you have the instruments, the navigation instruments. You have 2 odometers, a road book, GPS, Sentinel.
A GPS that's not a GPS.
Yeah. It's not a GPS.
It's a GPS when the organization wants it to be a GPS. And that's only what, you get in within a certain
90 meters.
90 meters of the waypoint.
Is it 90 and 180 depending on what type of waypoint it
And
is?
3 kilometers. The way it works is they mark in the road book. They mark certain points that you have to hit. I had a road book here to show you guys. Oh, here it is. And certain waypoints you have to hit within 90 meters. Once you hit it, the GPS opens an arrow and shows you where it is within those 90 meters. Some of them are 3 kilometers, and some of them are 180 meters. The ones that are crucial are 90 meters, which is 90
But
yards.
outside of those limits, all that screen is showing you
It's numbers.
is numbers. It's showing you your compass heading, it's showing speed, depending on waypoint, maybe showing distance to the next waypoint.
Right.
It's showing just numeric information.
The
There's no,
GPSs aren't still there, right? Because they belong
Correct.
to the organization.
They belong to the
or something like that,
organization.
right?
Yeah, the GPS, the Erie track,
Sense.
the beacon, the police, those things all are essentially leased to us, and then given back at the end of the race.
We have to buy the brackets. And
So-
they give you the instruments. You have to pay a deposit for the instruments in case they lose them.
How much fuel capacity did you end up with?
On that, I ended up 31 liters and 1 liter of oil. We made an oil tank. Right. Yeah. Here's where you put the 2-stroke oil, and here's where you get it out from.
Right, that's what I thought, yeah, that's pretty
Yeah. It didn't work as well because it took a long time to drop.
Oh, yeah.
So I got tired of it and I carried a bottle with 2-stroke oil. Because I had to sit down there with a bottle and waited for it to drop, and it
And
took
you
too long.
always carried the correct oil?
Who asked that? No, one time
it was a
I
handful.
told you that.
You know you're going to get a hard time, right? But you finished, so
It's
that's...
right. It so happened that ELF, the oil that we use, makes the exact same bottle for 2-stroke oil or filter.
The air filter oil, the 2-stroke air filter oil. It's the same color bottle and everything as his 2-stroke engine oil.
So one time I filled up with that and it cost me the engine.
Yeah.
I didn't notice though.
The engine repairs out on, I mean, the 150 is a very easy bike to work on. For the most part, you've got a couple of 8mm bolt or 8mm headed bolts, 6mm bolts, pull the exhaust pipe off. Once you get the fuel tanks and stuff, and then you got essentially 4 bolts. You know, maybe a bracket bolt or a bracket that when you pull the cylinder off. And Luis, when things like that would happen, when the engine would seize, he'd be in there pulling it apart, sanding it down, sanding the piston down. If anything, to get the rings freed up, maybe have to clean out the ring groove, get the ring freed back up. Obviously, it's not going to run efficient, but at the same time, it's going to run. And
Is this on the trail?
This is on the
Yes.
trail.
Okay.
This is out in the middle of nowhere.
That's what I thought.
The first day, he got to the bivouac, and we decided to try a new carburetor at the very last minute. Everything about this bike, and trust me, as a mechanic, I was very frustrated, and I love Luis to death, but he killed me with this. We had our 2010 that we'd raced, and it was perfect. We had 2 years of development on it. We knew everything about it, and a lot of people were going to the linkage suspension. They wanted a little bit plusher ride. They wanted something that was going to handle the bumps a little bit better. So Luis in September said, I've got an opportunity to get a 2013 150 XC. The bike we were running last year was a 150 SX. Now the SX has a bigger carburetor, it has a little bit more power, different expansion chamber, and we had a different gearbox put in it. We had an EXC gearbox put in it, so it had a wider ratio to it. Well, the XC has the wider ratio as well, but it has a smaller carburetor, less power, different expansion chamber, and so APT here locally, just up the road at the Bannister Mall, had a carburetor, and they wanted us to try it. And so it was supposed to give us 20 to 30% more fuel economy. It was supposed to self-adjust at altitude. And if anybody's familiar with the old Electron carburetors, or was it the Edelbrock carburetors, where they're a metering rod, you can change out the metering rod. There's no jetting to change. And we thought, well, that's a great idea. Let's try it. Well, from the very start, we had to fabricate that carburetor onto the bike. Well, the first bivouac we pull into, Luis is going, this thing has no power. It's fouling plugs. And, you know, Luis went and took a shower, and I was looking at it, and there was no way for me to adjust it or even know. It was kind of like an R&D session. It was like, I can't afford to run this carburetor and try and play with it when it gets out into the dunes. So I made a decision to put the old carburetor back on, or the stock carburetor. Luis wasn't very, I'm sure, happy with me. Because
that was fine. We
he
tried
had
it.
refiberglassed the air box that we modified to get the carburetor to fit. So that was the first day, is, you know, getting the thing to run well again.
The first day we had a very short stage, was 14 kilometers.
Yeah.
I fell twice because the bike will go.
And just
So,
so we get the bike finished or fixed and ready for him to go the next morning. And this is one of the tough Peruvian sand stages that they're talking about. And Luis gets out there, and the kit is it's a Yamaha kit. JVO makes an outstanding kit. It's a company in Spain, and they made this kit for essentially a 450 WR, a WR 450. And we fabricated it to the 150. And so there was a lot of unknowns. One of them was a clearance issue that we didn't find out until middle of the day, you know, in the sand dunes, was the front tire came up and hit the hose that crosses over between the two radiators and cut it in half. And so he lost all of his coolant, unbeknownst to him. Engine overheats, engine seizes. Not only gets so hot that it seizes, but it melts straight through the stainless steel clutch line. And that cylinder would play an integral part in the finish of our race down the road several days later.
that was the first time I used the wristband to fabricate a head gasket.
The first time, how many times do you have to do it?
Twice. Twice. In that engine there is one now.
So as you say, we love Luis. The most important thing he finished, but we did establish a new rule for support, which we kind of knew ahead of time. We are not going to support a bike in the future unless we have it in our possession for 10 days.
Minimum.
Yeah, they finished putting the bike together the very last day. The
very day of the last day of scrutiny.
Yeah.
I mean, excuse me, not scrutiny.
Technical revision.
Yeah, scrutiny. So, Jaime, outstanding mechanic. He's my teammate, and yeah, we worked on this bike. We got there on the 1st. We started working on the bikes on the 2nd. My bikes that I had built, I really didn't have to do anything. I put some new ICO batteries into them, put some fuel in them, and for the most part, ready to go. They go through scrutiny, and we're good. Luis's bike, since we didn't know anything about the kit, the bike actually came from Spain straight to Peru. So I had never seen the bike, you know, until I got to Peru on the 2nd. When we got to Peru on the 2nd, we started working on the bike. We spent 2.5 days straight working on it. We were to the point on the last evening, prior to the last day of scrutiny, that we had to pull an all-nighter. It was the first all-nighter we would pull, not to be the last all-nighter we would pull. So we pulled an all-nighter and got the bike ready, got it started, got it running. Mind you, we've got the APT carburetor in it. The only test ride we can do on this bike is up and down a street next to the Parc Ferme, and that was it.
You run really well there.
It was on the beach, and that was the only test ride prior to the race. We had no idea how this thing was going to operate. None. Luis, you know, it was, I'll have to just preface this by saying I've got the best team ever, you know, and if Luis didn't or couldn't, well, first of all, he did. He got the bike to me every night. I knew if he got to the bike, and trust me, there were many nights that he would come to me and you know, I'll ride it if you can fix it. And, you know, there were many nights where I was like, I'm done. I don't want to touch it no more. It's it. You know, it was definitely a kind of a love-hate relationship through the whole race. And in the end, it was a team pulling together to get it done. I mean, I think the bivouac got food poisoning. I got food poisoning. Dave Peckham got